Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guest is Vivian Loftin. She is the co-founder of Recyda. How are you, Vivian?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Joining us all the way from Europe. Where are you today?
I'm based in Germany, south of Germany, actually in the city with the most days of sun of Germany. So I
Oh,
really love it here. A recommendation for anyone who has not been to Freiburg. And yeah, that's where I am today.
well, that's wonderful. I'll have to add that to my list of must visits in Europe. My wife and I plan to travel quite a bit. So let's talk a little bit about your background before we get into your company. Can you tell us how you got into recycling?
Of course, and I think it's quite an unusual story because actually what I studied back at university was international cultural and business studies. And also so business, but always paired with this aspect of intercultural exchange, international teams, etc. And this, to be honest, has always been one of my passions: people, culture. And this is also why I traveled a lot. I worked abroad, and I got in touch with a lot of, well, missing sustainability in
Yeah.
countries like Mexico. And I think this is why I developed a need to create some impact somehow. And then by
Mm.
accident, I joined an innovation project where I met amazing people, my co-founders, and also great companies who basically introduced us to a challenge they had. And this is how we got to the idea of Recyda. And this is why I jumped into core waters and founded this company with my team. And yeah, this is how I got into recycling and packaging.
Right. I enjoy hearing stories like that where the impetus of a company is positive and your intentions are good and you're wanting to help us all save the planet here and make a good positive impact. Can you tell us about Recyda and what you do?
Definitely. And I think the interesting thing is that we try to have an impact in for a real problem, a quite tangible problem with
Mhm.
software and data. So basically, Recyda is a software company, and we develop basically a sustainability management platform where companies like brand owners, but also retail and packaging producers can basically assess and manage their packaging against various sustainability aspects. Also, what today, for example, with EU legislation for EPR, you can see, okay, is my packaging recyclable in a certain country? What kind of legislation do I have to follow? And am I compliant? What about the infrastructure? And I'm mentioning a lot of aspects, and that's
Yeah.
exactly the challenge that we addressing by centralizing all of this in one software and making it easy accessible to companies to manage their packaging.
Right. You're right. This is a big challenge. It is a big task for people, especially in Europe. The laws are changing so quickly, people are having a challenge keeping up. Let's talk about maybe a couple specific examples of how your software would help a company in Germany or and across the world.
Yeah, of course. So maybe mentioning one packaging example that actually was changed because of the use of Recyda
Mhm.
from one of our customers. It's basically just an example. It can be any packaging, but a shampoo bottle, which
Yeah.
had pump head. And because of all the material composition was not recyclable according to various guidelines, according to basically what different sorting, because there was metal in the pump, meaning that, yeah, well, it was basically sorted into the wrong
Multi-material.
stream.
Right. Right.
Yeah, this was detected, and then basically to see, okay, what packaging variation would be the optimal one to place on the markets that we have, so that it follows basically the guidelines and that we can ensure there's an infrastructure available. And they not only changed the closure, but they actually changed also basically the body in terms of how they have the label coverage as well. Also, basically what they had in terms of labels, etc., etc. So it was not
Mhm.
only one change, but actually various aspects that really influenced recyclability. And with the software, they could basically experiment and compare various solutions against each other to choose the ideal one. And this is one example that you can do for individual packaging solutions, but you can do this also at scale. Because as you might imagine, many brands have not only 5 packages to look at,
Right.
but tens of thousands of
Right.
packages. And this is where we can help identify weak points and basically see, okay, those are the ones that you need to start working on to basically follow what is demanded of you in the future.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. We need to celebrate those small wins and stop being overwhelmed with if you have tens of thousands of packaging SKUs or items, need to tackle them one at a time and say, okay, how can we, and look at the whole picture of what can be done to improve sustainability and recyclability. That's incredible that Recyda can help with that. You'll be attending Packaging Europe as a speaker, I believe. Is that correct? Tell
Yes,
us
exactly.
tell us about your speech or your panel that you'll be on there.
Yeah, basically, I'll introduce working on, and we're quite honored because we're also one of the finalists in the Driving the Circular Economy category, amongst other amazing innovations. So it's an honor to be one of the finalists that have made it there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And to be honest, I love being on stage, but I also love just listening to other panels and then entering into discussions in the coffee break because I feel like
Right.
this is where people really are super honest and also
Hmm.
critical and raise very important points. And
Yeah.
I think this is the part I'm most looking forward to.
Agree. 100%. We need to be there together to figure out how can we work together? How can we solve these problems together? Maybe Recyda can solve a problem that, different brands have that haven't heard of it. And so you'll be
Mhm.
able to present it there to them in person. And then I'm sure they'll pull you aside and say, hey, how can we sign up? And I've seen so many conversations at these events turn into major changes and positive effects for companies' sustainability, the green bottom line, if you will. I think that's very important to the future of sustainable packaging. I,
Absolutely.
I'd love to know a little bit more about what Europe is doing with their sustainability laws, in particular Germany, that maybe other countries should follow.
Yeah, I think a lot is happening at the moment.
Hmm.
And also with the packaging waste regulation draft that was just recently voted on. I think some major aspects that I see that Europe is doing quite well is EPR in general, and
Yeah.
basically what they are developing at the moment, also in terms of eco-modulation of EPR fees, what has been introduced already in a couple of countries and is really, because we also have this implemented, we see what big of an impact it can actually have and how it can actually serve to really be a driver to switch to different materials to basically help companies make a decision to go with a more sustainable packaging, even though it's maybe more expensive in purchasing. Meaning that this is one of the aspects that I find very interesting that's coming up in Europe at the moment. However, Germany is the worst example maybe for that because we have a competitive system and it's different. However, there's also a lot changing. And what we in Germany have is that we actually have something from legal side that's it's basically helping PROs, but also companies to see what is the minimum that I need to ensure in my design for recycling and what can we basically do. And this standard is basically developing every year. There's a new version and it's getting stricter and stricter, to be honest, but more
Yeah.
reflective of the reality. And also it's showing companies what kind of data they actually need to know about their packaging to make such an assessment and to understand
Right.
if is their packaging recyclable or not.
Exactly. Where do we need to start? What's step one in this process? And I think you just answered it. What are we using today? What are our components that are recyclable? What are our components compostable? Are we in spec now or are we in trouble? And I think a lot of companies that were maybe standing on the sidelines waiting to see what happened are now saying, oh boy, we better get moving on this and reach out to companies like yours and take advantage of this time to take action. Are you seeing that? Are people flocking to you and to companies like yours?
To be honest, I still see a lot of insecurity also
Hmm.
with PPWR because so much is unclear
Yeah.
also in terms of what is going to be the assessment for recyclability and can I place my packaging onto the market in 2030 or not?
Hmm.
And as you just mentioned it, there's a lot of waiting
Yeah.
still. And I think that's one of the issues that I see because you can have an impact already now and you can prepare for the future just by understanding your status quo and by understanding your packaging portfolio a lot better. Because I think many do not actually have enough data to really grasp that yet, meaning
Yeah.
that now could be the time or should be the time to work on these data topics as well, to really understand your packaging, to work with your suppliers, to basically get that in place, understand where you are. And as soon as some tangible or something that you can work with is published, you can actually apply it to your portfolio right away and not start then, because then the timeline is very ambitious. We see there are companies who are super engaged and who are really behind working on this and super creative also. We started building APIs and we also connected to data lakes, and this is something really amazing. However, I feel like there are also some companies are still waiting, and I think
Yeah.
they need to take action already. Like they need to start now.
Exactly. Yeah. What is an API? Just to educate the audience. Yeah.
I'm not the tech founder,
That's okay.
fortunately,
That's okay.
but it's basically meaning that we can communicate with existing systems where basically you don't need to use our software manually, but we
Hmm.
can use imports or even direct integrations so that, you know,
Oh, I see.
it's very efficient.
That's great. So your company, if let's say somebody's a CEO and they say, well, we don't want to invest in having to dump all of our data into this software, your company would be able to interact with their current system, advise them what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. And that's super important because also we cannot ask people to give us their packaging data in a certain format because every company has
Right.
a different standard, meaning that we are agnostic to that. We can work
Right.
with any data and we build mappings and we have very smart software guys who we taught a lot about packaging science and they work with
Different brains, right? Yeah. Yeah.
super interesting combination to have packaging science combined with software and it's amazing to see what you can actually do with it.
And to have the systems be able to talk to each other, that's really
Yeah.
incredible. So yeah, this is very exciting. Anything else you wanted to tell people about before we finish up here?
No, I think I'm just always happy if people talk to each other about this
Mhm.
topic. I think you cannot talk enough, and this is why I'm looking forward to the event so much. And this is why I
Yeah.
always love connecting and just having exchange. And I think
Yeah.
the most important thing in all of this is being honest, and also what you mentioned before, being proud of small changes as well.
Mhm. Well, congratulations on being nominated for an award. That's exciting. Getting to speak is very exciting too. Congratulations. How long has your company been around?
2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So
It
still
made a
quite
lot of
young.
progress quickly. Good for you. Well
Yes,
done. How
thank
do
you.
people get in touch with you if they'd like to connect?
Well, they can either meet me at the coffee station because I'm sure I will be there, or they can get in touch via LinkedIn or via my email address. Just reach out. I'm always happy to exchange.
Great. Thank you, Vivian. This has been awesome, and I really appreciate your wisdom and your time. Thank you.
Thank you.